Unfortunately, my sound drivers failed or something. But we're here now, and I have a fantastic guest, one that I met earlier this week. We had a fantastic conversation, Arlette. And of course, we're accompanied by another special guest, JC. So, Arlette, hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about today. I This is like my first live stream in 3 months, so I'm like very jittery and got like the first day of school like nervousness going on.
I know that feeling sometimes before I stream when I'm got something very controversial to discuss, or I understand. Um,
I'm okay. You said something, and I think we had lost you entirely. I don't know if it was only at my end, but we didn't hear your comments. I think it was your
okay,
internet
yeah, I
connection.
said sometimes I still get that jittery, nervous feeling before I stream. But Arlette, yeah, so yeah, I think everyone sort of knows JC from the Quranic Endgame, and he's been putting out some fantastic short videos discussing the hadiths, but from a Christian perspective, like how Jesus healed a man who couldn't walk. And he said, "Would you like to be healed?" And the guy said, "Yes." So Jesus called over a camel, got out a glass, and started to, shall we say, extract the essential yellow fluid from the camel. And the man got up and ran away, which is, which just shows how ridiculous these particular Islamic stories are. But Oleg, you've got a very particular story to tell. You were a pagan, you joined Islam, and you left Islam, and yeah, and somehow you ended up on my channel. So yeah, you've got quite a story to tell. So please fill us in, tell us more.
Yeah, sure. Gosh, it's been one heck of a life, really. um, yeah, I didn't really grow up with religion in general. I learned about different religious faiths. My stepdad was Native American, and so he was very ingrained in his culture, and but it was like very naturalistic, like Father Sky, Mother Earth, that kind of like not like oppressive or like no regulatory religious things to do. So that was kind of like my first introduction to like something beyond the material. And I didn't grow up with any religion, and when I was about 15, my brother went to college, and it was a Bible college, and I was like so confused because I was like, what do you mean Bible college? What does that like? Are you like going to school to make a Bible? Like, I didn't understand anything. Like, I didn't know what like the Bible was. I didn't, I saw Christians yelling hellfire stuff on the sidewalks. That's what I saw Christians as. And he was going to become a pastor, but a very particular sort of pastor for a particular kind of denomination. I cannot remember what that was, but seeing his experience after growing up in an atheist household, uh, having any difference of opinion and being told he's going to go to hell, or that he got fired, he got let go from like his internships. Like it was just a lot of chaos and just not a very good intro to what Christianity can be. So,
Right.
you know, I I couldn't get into that, but like my upbringing wasn't very good. There was a lot of abuse going on and stuff. So,
Sorry.
um, that also ties into how I joined Islam later. Um, but like late high school, early college, I started dabbling in like paganism, natural earth, appreciation. I did all the witchcraft. I did the tarot. I had a very successful tarot business. It was almost six figures at one point. So, I was pretty good at what I did, and you know, I latched onto that because it felt like that was the only thing I really had control over.
Right.
Nothing else in life really offered stability. Um, every environment I kind of went into, people were just not very kind and very accommodating. And so I don't know.
So you were
I
searching
just,
for belonging. You wanted something that
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
threatening,
like,
that something would give you peace, allow you to just relax and trust.
yeah, relax, trust, and be able to heal from what I went through instead of being judged for it. And if that's one thing I can actually hand the pagan community, at least partly, is they are full of outcasts. They are full of abused people that didn't get help, and they try to rally around each other to give each other a place to um, find support and explore alternative ideas that aren't abusive. But then you see the darker side of it. There are those corners there. Everything's dysregulated. Um, you know, and then they start to try to control how you do things. If you don't use tarot cards the right way, you're not a real tarot reader. If you don't, follow a certain deity a certain way, you're just hallucinating and imagining things, and it's not real. And so there's a lot of toxicity there too. Um, but that and my bad experiences with Christianity, on top of like everybody in that pagan community hating Christianity, we were always like, the church is hiding things, the church is bad, Christians, trying to control the universe. Like we were into the conspiracies of like the Gospel of Thomas is one of the true gospels, which you can see where I'm kind of heading with this, that
Yeah,
the
that's very
alternative
Gnostic. It's
gospels.
crazy how the whole Gnostic idea, the secret
Yes.
knowledge, which leads to conspiracy theory thinking, and that actually you said infests like the Wiccan, pagan, witchcraft communities.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's rampant because they need a reason to dislike it. On top of like the community just treating, Christians treating them bad in general, they need to think something larger is being hidden, some grand truth or something. So yeah, and that really helped me accept Islam later, even though Islam is monotheistic. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong about the whole deity situation, and but I see all this other stuff that overlaps. Like it calls out Jews and Christians in the Quran, and I love that. Like that's one of the things that got me to pay attention.
Okay. Question: would you say that from the community that you came from, that particular, shall we say, religious community, as it were, did they have? You said there was division because there was confusion over the deities, the practices, the tarot. So was it was attacking, let's say, Christianity a way to deflect energy away from looking at the flaws that were internally inconsistent within that group? Would there be an element of that?
That's a good point. Now that I'm looking back at it, yeah, I think that's like the one thing we could rally around. And then anybody who was supportive of Christianity, or uh, I guess Christianity, or anyone that was pagan that went to Christianity, we just ended up attacking that person and saying they were just brainwashed or coerced into it or abused into it. Like we said, nobody ever leaves paganism. So uh,
No one
I'm
becomes the next Muslim.
yeah, yeah, and I'm laughing because I keep thinking about like your streams and other streams I watch. I'm just like, there is so much overlap here that I'm just like, I missed all of it for so many years. I missed all of it.
Well, you did say in one stream, which is the comment that I actually picked up because I didn't know who you were, and you made a comment saying, I left paganism, but you're showing me things in Islam that align and are just like the paganism that I left. The structure is the same.
Yeah.
And I was curious about that, so I looked you up and I discovered you had a channel. I watched your videos, and then I emailed you. So that was really an interesting point. I mean, you're the second person. I have a friend based in Germany. Oh, short story. My friend in Germany contacts me today. He escaped from a cult when he was 15. There was abuse. His mother was part of the cult. They believed that they were all Jesus Christ. The Krishna consciousness, but now it's the Jesus Christ consciousness. And they are Gnostics. They believe in the same, the Apocryphon of John, and what you mentioned, the infancy gospel of Thomas, and they believe those are real, and so on, right? And I actually read the Apocryphon of John after he asked me to, because that was one of the foundational texts of this group. But he called me today to say in Germany, they were invited to a Muslim wedding, Muslim couple, but the venue they got married in was a Catholic church, but the Catholic priest wouldn't obviously preside over the wedding, but they wanted a Catholic venue for some reason. And then presiding over the wedding was a Protestant priest with an imam in attendance, both presiding over the wedding. And he said this was bizarre. I have no idea. So, yeah, some strange things are happening in the world.
I think that's called a
That-
mixed wedding.
Yeah, it's like the multi-faith friendly, I guess the coexist stickers come to mind.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, I mean, I contacted you. I was really surprised, but my German friend, that story aside, says the same things. That because he escaped at 15 because he said it was crazy, and he ran away from home and he basically took care of himself from the age of 15. And he says the same things that you say, which is really interesting. You know, different part of the world, different cult, but he says same story, same structure, same methods.
Yeah, it's more controlling than they think. When you give people massive amounts of freedom, it's actually a hindrance for people. You start to get overwhelmed, and things start, getting very scary because there's so much information coming at you and so many experiences, and everything is encouraged. Like mushrooms, like hallucinogens, all kinds of like gambling money, spending massive amounts on crystals and stuff. And then like once you start not doing those things anymore, you start getting ostracized from the group that you're in. It's kind of like multi-level marketing, the it's like it's like an MLM. It's you get sucked in, and then you get all this like support and love, but you have to keep buying stuff, and you have to keep participating in like what the main people that you're around support and want you to be in. So it's a pretty controlling environment, even though it looks very freeing. And a lot of pagans actually go through that, which is why a lot of them either come out with like massive amounts of depression. Scrupulosity can actually be a thing with them because they were afraid to do things wrong. So they become like very rigid and scared of like signs around them, like seeing certain numbers repeated or certain symbols. And I know other religious groups kind of have that too.
Well. So very superstitious as well then.
Oh, yeah. Very.
Because something I've read about, I've talked about it on my channel, but I haven't really dived deep into it, is that if you look at Islamic culture, it is also highly superstitious. It is also deeply into magic, and you can go deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole. So is that similarity as well? In terms of Islam may be more developed, might be more camouflaged as a Abrahamic religion, but it seems to have all of these hallmarks of these pagan cults that you've just spoken of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know some Muslims use like the evil eye amulets, like to repel the evil eye, which is like just people looking at you with jealousy or malice or wishing they had what you had and you would lose it so they can get it, stuff like that. But a lot of, it's technically like frowned upon, but I mean, if you look at some of the Islamic practices, like when you do wudu and stuff, you have to do it in a very specific manner. And like you could lose control of your body overnight. So like Satan sleeps in your nose, or I mean, it's like all these, like there's jinn in the water drains or something. So you have to like be aware of like feeding them or so. I don't know. There was so much. Don't leave your prayer mat out or Satan will prey on it. Like it's very, very similar.
Right. Just so, by the way, this is the Anglican priestess selling sex toys to support Planned Parenthood. This is the Anglican priest selling sex toys to fund Planned Parenthood, obviously for abortions.
Oh man,
Just very disturbing.
I'm not even surprised.
And this is the church that I come from, the Church of England. And this is what it is today. This is what it's become. And I mean, this is just the latest in a long line of such egregious, I don't know, misbehavior. It's hard to know what to even call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's crazy because in Islam, you've got to step into the bathroom with your left foot, step out with the right foot, and it's all controlled in the Sharia. You've got to say a certain prayer as you go in. You've got to say a certain prayer as you come out. Satan lives in the toilet. The jinns live in the toilet bowl. It's Satan's favorite room in the house, but he also lives in your nose in places of filth. It's really crazy, but you also have to drink camel urine. It's for health. It's just, but you mustn't let urine touch your skin, because if urine touches your skin, it's one of the greatest causes of sending women and men to hell in Islam. Urine touching the skin, but also if in the hadith, if urine touches your leg, you should cut off that piece of skin, but you should drink it for health reasons. And you're like, this does not compute.
No, there's.
There are some Muslims that I have met who were actually very secular, but they would be absolutely paranoid when it comes to superstition. So it looks almost like these things begin with, well, you have to do this in this manner. But then it becomes, well, if you don't do it, bad things are going to happen. And then they become like increasingly more scared, more frightened. So really, what could be superstition, like don't walk under a ladder or something like that, it becomes like absolute panic to even thinking about it, like paranoia. It's very interesting how the progression goes the deeper you are in it. So is this sort of things that you have experienced with Islam? Like, they reinforce this sort of behavior that becomes superstition, that becomes paranoia?
Yeah, I mean, even the Sunnah can be superstitious. Like if you deviate from anything Muhammad did in his life, like they were so afraid of imitating the non-believers. I mean, my ex-husband, after a while, like when I first married him, a year after converting, I was very liberal Muslim at first because they throw the hijab is freeing and it protects you, and yada yada, you can own property, blah blah blah, all the stuff. And I'll tell you more about their dawah in a little while, but he was not that strict at first, but then like if I wanted to cook pasta, because I like making homemade fresh noodles and homemade sauce, growing the tomatoes, I cooked so well for that man. But he was like, anything the prophet didn't eat, we will not serve that in this house. We will not look at it. We will not think about it. We will not taste it. It's the unbelievers. It's imitating them. And I had been told culture can be accommodated if you just cut out the haram foods and stuff, right? Well, that wasn't the case. So I ended up having to eat and only cook stuff from his culture because he was born around Medina. So, I had to only cook what was permissible for that. And that.
So this is not integration. This is basically forcing that culture
Yes.
into the space that he's living now. He's just transplanting his culture, just bringing his norms with him. By no means looking to integrate.
Right. Yeah. You're not supposed to integrate, really. That's a lie they tell you, is you can wear cultural clothing, you can eat the food, you can still have certain kinds of art and things like that. But I mean, for women especially, that's like really not the case. So, it completely erases other cultures. I mean, you can see that pretty much anywhere they went when they were colonizing in the Middle East. Like, I mean, Egypt had a beautiful, rich culture. Particularly, I believe they were mostly Christian for a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Now
But
it's like
they
6% or 2% Christian. It's from like
yeah
90%.
yeah, and they just erase everything, and it's like you have to dress like an Arab, you have to socialize like an Arab, you have to buy and sell things like an Arab, you have to eat like an Arab, you have to go to the bathroom like an Arab. I'm just like I'm not an Arab. Like clearly I'm not an Arab. That was
You can
that's like part of
identify as
me.
one now, you know.
Well,
In the modern
yeah.
day and age, you can identify as anything, you know.
Yeah. Just say I feel Egyptian today. I mean, technically my genealogy has Egyptian in it, but I could just say, "Oh, I feel like I am an Arab woman today." And I feel like I'm a man. I'm just gonna go wear a kufi and a thobe and act like an Arab man. Like, do the liberal thing. Oh my,
But he was
don't
simply
even get
being
me
strict.
started.
And ultimately, if you want to follow, if you want to imitate Muhammad as the perfect man, if you want to apply the Sharia correctly,
Yeah,
then ultimately this is what all Muslims will have to do. This is not optional. It's just that some are stricter than others. He is following azima, which is strictness according to the Sharia, and the
yeah,
other Muslims are following rukhsa, which is dispensation. But ultimately, once the world is governed under the Sharia, everyone, like under ISIS or in Afghanistan, has to follow those rules.
yeah, yeah. There's
Oh,
there's not going to be cultural diversity, patterns on clothes, especially not for women. I mean, and with the Sunnah and how strict they try to be, women have all these rules that a lot of stuff that Muhammad did, women can't do. So when you're saying you get extra blessings or something for following what Muhammad did, women don't get extra blessings for praying in the masjid or going to certain mosques. We get benefits for praying at home more than anything else. We can't do the perfume outside. We can't do the eyeliner. Muhammad loved those things. He did it all the time. He was always perfumed, always with the kohl, on the eyes, wearing certain kinds of clothing. But women can't draw any attention to
Great.
themselves at all.
Now we just got to figure out if he did lipstick and painted his nails.
Well, I mean, women can't do it, so maybe Diha Al Kalbi, was his nail painting partner.
Wow.
may
Yeah.
may I, if I can put it on as an example, did it feel sort of like before Islam they say, look, if you accept Islam, we're going to give you a one-way ticket to Dubai. It's going to be phenomenal. You have great apartment. It's rooted in traditions and it's modern and it's liberal and everything is going to be wonderful. And you say, yeah, I'll accept Islam. Then they put you on a plane. It flies. The door opens and you are not in Dubai. You're in the middle of the lands of the Taliban. Did it feel like a transition where they told you one thing pre-Islam, and then once you were in it, where was kind of like, haha, gotcha. No, that was just the advertisement.
Yeah, yeah. That that's the hardest one for me to deal with because now I see all of the I see everything out in the open that's like right in front of people's faces. And I talked about that a few days ago when we were chatting. Is
Yeah.
everything's right out in front of your face, but it's so close you can't see all the harm it can do and all this stuff that isn't compatible with what they tell you when they try to convince you to become Muslim. I mean, I had gone through a really rough life. I was adopted into a family that was really not great. And, in Islam, you can't be adopted. So, they were like, hey, that wouldn't have happened to you. We can prevent those kinds of things from happening. Uh, I was around the DFW area and I lived around a lot of mosques for a while before even like going and exploring them. They had tons of like volunteering. They would free mix. They would talk to you. They would have you do stuff. So they would like integrate you slowly. They didn't need dawah
Okay.
tables there. So, they were just like showing us, yeah, Dallas Fort Worth. Sorry, I'm still like in the Texan mindset sometimes. I'm like, oh, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Uh, yeah, so they will slowly integrate you, be your friend, be super friendly, pretend they're super like woman loving, supporting of freedom. And then slowly but surely you start seeing everything else.
Okay. Are there any, unless of course it's very private and it's not comfortable, but are there any examples that you can say, look, for example, they failed to say this and then that was what it was, or the opposite, they told me this and then it turned out not to be? Any examples like that?
Yeah, actually, so I'll just go with a very simple one to start. So for women, you'll see a lot of hijabi women who wear the headscarves, who have makeup on, who have like heels and pants and just a cardigan over it, and they'll call that like hijab. Technically, that's not correct, but they say you can wear whatever you want as long as you're covered. But technically, once you really start getting into the system and learning what you should and shouldn't be doing, none of your figure can be showing. So if you're plus size, that's a problem. The only thing that'll cover you is a jilbab, which is it goes over your head and it shows your face. So it's kind of like a hijab. You can see the face, but it has armholes and arms. Yeah, that's perfect. And then it covers your whole body. So you can't see shoulder shape, rear end, chest. But like certain women, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to see something like or it'll be so inconvenient to move around in that you're just going to be falling over yourself even during prayer and invalidating your prayer because you're falling over on your butt. So that's like one example of something that actually really impacts your day-to-day life. And they don't tell you that certain groups see niqab as a mandatory thing. And even some women have to wear the one that covers most of their eyes too, because they have a very beautiful eye color. So they have to not cause fitna, not attract unwanted attention and all that by covering up more. Some women have nice voices, so you can't talk much in public. If you have nice hands, which I had to wear gloves and a niqab after a while, I could not speak to people after a while. Like it was just more and more stuff added on. But that's like a very easy example of just how they control your life. And men will be forced into like a thobe and stuff and wearing a long beard, even if it's bad for their skin. Like they don't care. It's assimilate, blend in, shut up, and do what we tell you. And that, they'll slowly knock down every single thing that you thought was a freedom that really isn't.
Well,
Okay,
thank you
so
very
it
much for the
happens.
super chats. Just 1 second, please, JC. Thank you very much for the super chats. Art Butler and Varun9164 says, Arlette, yes, 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 you are not an Arab.
How dare you? I'm so
It's
offended.
okay
I'm
to
gonna
be
go dye my
white.
hair purple.
Really, on this channel, it's okay to be white. As I like to tell people. Sorry. Yeah, very, very politically incorrect around here.
So right. So then you're saying that these things happen, say, gradually. So one step at a time. In the beginning, they don't tell you, well, in 2 years' time, this is what you're going to look like. They don't tell you that. They tell you one step at a time. What happens if you do any pushback and you say, no, hang on a minute, I didn't actually sign up for wearing gloves, so I'm not going to wear them. So is there any enforcement, or do you just kind of get gradually into it so you don't realize, so you stop offering or giving any resistance?
It
Yeah, and did
depends
they
on the
tell you
person.
Islam is the most feminist religion?
Yeah. Yeah, it says it protects women, that you can learn as much as you want. You can have all of your own money. You don't have to pay any bills. You're protected. Like if anybody even looks at you funny, like Muslim men will jump on them. Like, and for someone that grew up in a situation where I was harmed a lot, completely covering myself like that, at first it felt like, oh yes, please, like, because people are gross and men are, no offense to anybody here, but I had a very bad impression of most men growing up. Um, I was just like, please cover me up. Yes, I want the niqab. I don't want them to see my face. I don't want them to hear me talk. I want my hands being hidden. So it felt like a safety net. everything felt like a safety net until it got to the point where I was out of my original abusive situation so long that I started to unpack the harm it did. And I'm like, wait, something about this situation isn't quite right. Like, I am supposed to be this spiritually fulfilled woman. I'm supposed to be thriving like this. And yet I had like vitamin D deficiency. I had severe depression. I was isolated. I wasn't even allowed to talk to the imam at like my 5th year of marriage because it was a man. I couldn't even go outside. So it was like, it got to that point where I was isolated and I couldn't even, like, I couldn't work anymore. He didn't let me do much of anything. So it was like every freedom a woman has in Islam, like the property, the money, you can only work and go outside and stuff if your man that is the guardian of you, the husband, the father, whatever, gives you permission.
In Iran, the mutawa, I mean, that's the morality police, were literally beating, imprisoning, killing, and raping women for exposing their skin, for not covering their hair, or just exposing a little bit of their hair.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't modest enough, that was violating Islamic law. And yet in the West, women are claiming, Christians are going to make them dress and restrict their rights. Like in, what's that fictional story that they keep on talking about? There's some fictional story where The Handmaid's Tale, yeah. But this literally happens in Afghanistan, in Saudi Arabia, in plenty of countries, right, where women literally are entrapped like this. You'd think the feminists would actually stand up for this, but the I don't know, the hypocrisy, the blindness, it's just, to me, it's shocking. You don't see them fighting for the freedom of these Iranian women who've been murdered. You don't see the marches for the Iranian women that are being suppressed amongst women in plenty of countries. And yet, it's just, to me, it's shocking. I mean, your thoughts on that? I mean, you come out of that. I mean, what would you tell these women, these feminists?
I would try to tell them what I experienced, but the problem is they would look at me and say I'm just being Islamophobic and racist. That I was just in a bad marriage and that's not true Islam. It was just culture, but you have to let them have their culture. Like, it's not right of you to not let them have their culture. Like, don't marry someone outside your culture if you don't want to like be integrated into it or something. Like, I've gotten that kind of pushback before. I was in it. I know all about it, but I used to be the funny thing about all this is I used to be a very far left person when I was pagan. Very far, like the furthest left that was almost looping around to becoming right. Like far, let everybody have what they want, do whatever they want, free society, free money, like, and I know exactly how they respond. So I think that's why I try to present it in a more academic manner, in a more, I understand their point of view, and I understand the other point of view, which is women getting harmed, and even the men get harmed in Islam. So it's not just women. Like, men get disrespected and harmed all the time. Like, it's very toxic for them too. Treats them like absolute animals. So it's like, I try to build that bridge and others, and I just get told like, well, men deserve that. They act like that, or like, let people have their culture. White people have no culture, so you don't know anything about culture. And I'm just like, what is all this nonsense? Like, y'all need to just open your eyes. How about you go live in Afghanistan for a little bit? Like, why don't I send you over there? Tell me how great it is to not be able to even have a freaking window now to look outside because somebody might see you. They can't talk to other women. They can't have windows. They can't go outside hardly at all. They can't get education. Tell me how great that is. And that's what Islam teaches. If men say no, if women need protected more, because the West is so evil, apparently, even though they come to us for all their resources, because they can't like produce stuff on their own without destroying each other. It's like, it's just a big ball of mess. And I just can't, like, it's so hard for me not to get mad at them for this.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, just was it so they don't tell you the truth up front. They lead you in, and then slowly it encroaches. It starts to cut off your options. You start to
Yeah.
see it piece by piece. When did it get to the point that you thought, hold on, there's something wrong here? When did you get to that point?
One of the first points was I was very into reading hadith. I still really love studying Islam and analyzing it. And I was very much into hadith and studying the Quran. And when I looked at some hadith, they contradicted what my ex-husband was doing. And I tried to present them in a way just to be a loving, great partner, even though I wasn't happy. But I was like, hey, honey, like, look at this, like one of the ones was the Prophet Muhammad, didn't marry women from a certain group because they weren't used to polygamy, and that would have caused them distress. And I was like, hey, I was very distressed when I found out you had 3 other wives,
He had
a while
3
into
other
our marriage.
wives.
Yeah, and I didn't know for a long time.
Wow.
He accidentally revealed it when we were eating out at a restaurant one day. So I was like, that's very harmful for me. Like, I feel neglected. I feel like you don't care about me. I feel like I'm a collectible porcelain doll. Like, I thought Islam took care of women. I thought I was protected. I thought I was valued. And yet you hid this from me. And he was like, well, yeah, we don't have to tell you. We don't have to, they don't know about you either. They don't know about each other. And he married me. He had 2 women back home. And then I forget where number 4 was. But they also had servants that they bought and sold. So I found out about that at the end of the marriage, the servants, and he could have access to them intimately as well, which is a very real legitimate thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I got a winner there. So he was going to take me over there because I started pushing back. He's going to take me back home. And the second, major thing that happened was, funny enough, I don't know am I allowed to name drop other people or other channels?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's very ironic. David Wood, actually, an apostate prophet, they do their streams where they talk about Islam and things like that. And they dig up a lot of information. And they were talking about Aisha and how young she was when she got married to Muhammad. I did not know she was that young.
So how could you not know? Because it seems to surprise a lot of Muslims as well, unless they're just lying about it. But it seems to surprise a lot of Muslims too.
They call her a woman at 9. So they just don't tell you the age. And they show all this other alternative, like the modern Muslims that are westernized, you'll see they'll say, oh, she must have been 19 or 20 based on these other hadith. And so who the heck really knows? I mean, they both have points for and against each other for 9 or 19 or whatever. But, the Islamic countries go by 9 years old. So that's more consistent with real world experience.
Right.
But when I found out about that, I tried to talk to the imam. It was one of the times where I was completely alone, so I could actually go out and go do stuff. And I tried asking about it, and he was like, well, yeah, if you had a daughter, we would make her get married at 9. You have no say in this. And the problem for me was I could not see that not doing harm, because I won't go too far into it, but the age gap between Aisha and Muhammad, he was in his 50s when he married her. And when the, consummation happened, she was 9. when I was young, I was assaulted by men that age gap with me and them, that exact age of her. That's how old I was. And I was like, that was so harmful. And I was like, how could this be a prophet from God when that did so much harm to me? And he was like, well, if it was a marriage contract, that would have been fine. And I was like, wait, what? It's like, but I wouldn't have been happy. I was really miserable as a kid. I was anxious. I was depressed. I was hurt, like physically hurt. And I was like, how can this be okay for her when no 9-year-old I knew could handle something like that? When she was pulled off a swing, I read in the Hadith, and just handed over to this guy.
I'm sorry.
That really hit
I'm really
me.
sorry.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things I tried to prevent. That's why I decided to finally get online, because I was like, I have to do something. I know other girls are getting this stuff happening to them, even in Christian communities. Some of them, they do stuff like this to 13, 14-year-olds. And I was like, I just have to push back. But finding out about that with David Wood and them, and then seeing David Wood, actually, he has antisocial personality disorder, so he can't feel emotions like we do. Like, he doesn't feel fear, he doesn't feel sadness. Like, he's like the Terminator, but he's on our side.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing him like start to exhibit things that looked like actual anger physically, and his expressions, how disgusted he could feel even without feeling, I knew there was something wrong there.
Who have such disorders, even psychopaths, as he claims to be, typically as they get older, towards 50, they tend to mellow out. And two, he's got children, so he's got a family, so he's got an investment, so that does tend to have apparently some kind of effect.
Yeah.
I just want to show something on stream. Let me just share a couple of things because these are things we'll discuss in a minute as well, at least as part of this discussion. You mentioned something about so in Islam, I'm just bringing this up. Here we go. In Islam, so this is from the Reliance of the Traveler, the world's most common and most popular Sharia law manual, right? And it speaks of rigorously authenticated. Sahih means rigorously authenticated. I just grabbed one of the first ones I could find. So if it's Sahih, it is rigorously authenticated. So when Muslims try to argue that Aisha was 18 or 19, they are not using Sahih hadiths. Now, the moment we use Sahih hadiths, they all become weak and da'if, right? They become fabricated or just unreliable. But of course, I would ask a Muslim, so please show me in the Quran the names of Muhammad's wives. Do you have any reason to doubt the names of his wives? No. So show me where they are in the Quran. And then suddenly they are perfectly happy to accept from the hadiths the names of Muhammad's wives, which do not appear in the Quran. But the moment you start talking about other things, it's like, show me that in the Quran. Okay, well, yeah, show me Muhammad's wives in the Quran and I'll take you seriously, right? And they'll reject things. But now, for instance, this is the Fath al-Bari. They are tafsirs of the Quran, and they are also tafsirs of the hadiths. Few people realize, and the Fath al-Bari is the tafsir of the Sahih of Bukhari. And Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani is the most famous scholar that wrote multiple volumes that interpret the hadiths of Bukhari. Now, this is a new translation of the Fath al-Bari, the victory of the Creator, of Allah basically, which was done by the students of Medina University and Al-Azhar. These are the two most prestigious. Medina University is, of course, where Muhammad, it's the city of the Prophet, Medina, and Al-Azhar is the oldest, most prestigious university in Islam. And they state here, right, removing weak hadiths from works was not the example of the scholars, right? So Islamic scholars did not remove weak hadiths. Otherwise, Imam Ibn Hajar would not have included them in the Fath al-Bari as sources to take knowledge from. Now, these are the scholars from the two most prestigious Islamic universities in the world. Weak hadiths are used to support opinions because a weak hadith containing the words of the Prophet are preferred over pure opinion and personal ijtihad, or personal reasoning. This is the example set by all the scholars, including Imam Bukhari, who used them deliberately in his work Al-Adab al-Mufrad. Now, we know that Bukhari wrote the Sahih, but he also wrote other hadith collections which were not the Sahih. The Sahih Bukhari is only the collection of what is considered authentic or rigorously authenticated. The Sahih of Imam Bukhari is a collection of the Sahih hadith specifically, not a collection of the only hadiths that scholars use. And the scholars state a Sahih hadith has a 99 to 100% chance of being entirely accurate. Right? Now, of course, Muslims will lie, Muslims will misrepresent, Muslims are ignorant, etc. But they're saying here that what Sahih Bukhari says, that Aisha was 9 when Muhammad climbed on top of her, is 99 to 100% accurate. A Hassan hadith has an 85 to 99% chance of being accurate. A Da'if hadith has a 45 to 85% chance of being entirely accurate. Even a fabricated hadith has a 45% chance of being accurate, since the grading it was given may have been wrong, or the fabricator may have spoken the truth. In this instance, weak hadith should not be treated like a fabricated hadith, because an 85% chance of being entirely accurate is a very high chance. And Muslims want to deceive us. So please keep this in mind for the audience. Take a screenshot of this, keep this in mind. It's in my archive. Check the Google Drive archive below. Look for the Fat al-Bari. I'll just get the name here. So the Fat al-Bari, look that up, because that will refute Muslims lying to you about the status of the hadiths and their authority. Your thoughts on that, Arlette?
It makes a lot more sense now, where I was confused why weak hadith were actually used. And now that makes a lot more sense. I didn't have access to this before, so I'm definitely going to take a look at it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why even like the camel urine drinking and stuff like that is taken seriously, when they will take a completely known, most likely to be fabricated hadith and follow it anyway, because it's still kind of useful. That's
I mean, we can read
horrible.
the reliance in the Sharia. The meaning of this hadith, although the hadith is not well authenticated, in other words, it is weak or da'if, it is true. So you can find this all over the Sharia. They utilize weak hadiths and non-rigorously authenticated hadiths as sources of evidence. So Muslims will just lie out of embarrassment and shame. That's unfortunately very, very common.
If I may,
Yeah.
about this, particularly when it comes to Aisha, that could be a whole conversation, but it's quite simple. We look at the history, and for 1,350 years, there has not been discussion. Everybody knew the age, everything was fine. The moment that Islam has made it into the West, all of a sudden, it's a problem. Nobody knew anything for the last nearly 1,400 years, and she was an adult. And it's like, your sources don't say that, your practices didn't suggest that, and we have that for all that time. So this is just part of the whole Dawah script. On Sharia, as disturbing as the thing with Aisha is, I think Lloyd has shown sometimes other things that please just don't show them now, but that there are rulings as to what to do when a girl is taken who is even less than 9 years old, and there is no even age limit, which is even worse, but that's not being told to people. And to join that with your experiences, Arlette, one of the things that I have seen a lot is women, Muslimas, full niqabis, going out there and saying Sharia is amazing, we need Sharia in this country, which is like chickens for KFC. It doesn't make any sense. So when you were in it, were you made to believe that Sharia was absolutely phenomenal, that it had to be imposed? Were you led to believe that without knowledge, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, it was presented as divinely ordained, and there were obviously times where even the earlier followers of Islam weren't as strict with Sharia. They were like, oh, it's so applicable for any kind of situation, and we have all these, rulings, and the second caliph did these things during like times of poverty and war, like he didn't cut people's, amputate hands for stealing if they were hungry or if they were super poor. They were like, yeah, look, we can be accommodating. We can, not do the full extent of the law because we have that freedom. So they said it in this way that was like super accommodating, but like very, very good for society in the best way to live possible. So it was like unquestionably the best thing, and keeping women hidden in that way was presented to me as protection. And I was told like women would eventually get their own women's only areas. We could go, go socialize, have a little, let us off our leash in a park for a little bit. But I thought that was like the best thing ever because I still had a very bad experience with most men in my life. So, I thought men were just inherently unable to control themselves, especially seeing that in Islam where they say a man sees an ankle and he's going to jump on you. A strand of hair, he's going to get turned on. He hears your voice being too soft and it's going to arouse him. Like it's oh my God.
Victim blaming.
Yeah, victim blaming, and then treating men like they are like
Can't control themselves.
Can't control themselves. They're only good for like sacrificing themselves for wars and getting more money and like reproduction, and putting all this weight on them for like every sin your family does is on you, so you better like keep a firm hand. Like it's bad for everybody. It's bad for people mentally, physically. It destroys economies, like with her, like you can't pass down businesses to your kids and stuff, like certain kinds of commerce you can't do, like destroys culture. It's it's like a little virus, a cancer virus, where it eats everything. It's dormant until it doesn't have to be anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's Joshua Grace and Peace says, introduces us to carnal forces or motives, which is true. It makes you into a very base human being as opposed to an elevated human being. It sees you as just something that you can't control your sexual urges, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what the majority of it is based around, is controlling women and birth rates and stealing from others and then taking the women as concubines, and just like it's full of hatred. You have to hate everybody that's different than you. You're supposed to hide evil and sins that other people do, which never made sense to me. If you're supposed to hide everything, why are there punishments? Like, should you just have one punishment for the one that like exposes the sin? I don't know. Certain things like that, like it just doesn't make sense.
A couple of things I'll show you here then. For instance, if a man looks at you without permission and you threw a rock at him and knocked out his eye, you would not have committed an offense. This is in the Sharia, for instance, right? Whoever peeps into a house without its people's permission, they may put out his eye.
Wow.
This is actually allowed within Islam.
Very civilized.
Yeah, very, very uncivilized. But I mean, I can show you other sections from the Sharia, which is on deception, but it states that a Muslim that reveals the sins of another Muslim is creating an even greater harm.
Mm-hmm.
It is better to hide the sins of another Muslim. For instance, if you go through the discussions on the massive rape gang culture, the Pakistani rape gang culture, it's not Asian because it's not the Japanese doing it. If I look at the Pakistani rape gang culture in the UK, I don't think there's a single instance, at least the most recent interview that I watched on the topic, there's not a single instance of a Muslim coming forward and giving evidence against other Muslims to say, hey, there's a crime happening, we need to do something about it. I don't believe there's a single instance of that, because within the culture it states that for you to reveal the sin of another Muslim brings shame on Islam, and you'll be punished by Allah, because that's an even greater sin. But if you cover up the sin of a brother Muslim, Allah will cover up your sins on the day of judgment.
Yeah, that that makes so much sense with even how I met my ex-husband. I was attending Epic Masjid in Plano, and they have like a marriage service, and so they it's so silly. Like you literally fill out paperwork that's kind of like a resume, because you can't really free mix and interact with people that are your opposite gender as much as you would need to like know if you should marry them or not. So I was looking for someone that was like very respected in the community, knew Islam, like was very respectable, didn't like do things he shouldn't. And I got introduced to him through the imam, and they like converts a lot. They like white women a lot, white women converts. I don't know what their obsession is. It's weird, but they think you're easier to manipulate, I guess. And so
Actually, blondes were the most popular
blondes, yes.
women that they would enslave.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, back in the day, it was definitely blondes.
yeah, which
Yeah,
is
so
yeah.
yeah, all of his wrongdoings were hidden from me.
Yeah.
So
Oh wow! I'll actually show you this. This is in the Ihya Ulum al-Din. Now it's supposed to be. It's written by a scholar called Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. He is effectively the most prolific of the Islamic authors, and he's called the Hujjat al-Islam. And even though he's not one of the original founders of the Sharia, the four imams who founded the schools, technically he is held above them in terms of his influence, right? And he wrote the Ihya Ulum al-Din, which is the revival of the religious sciences, right? And this is a commentary on the Quran, and this is held as a genuine understanding and proper expression of the morality of Islam and of the Quran. And he says there is no sin in the falsehood which benefits a Muslim or removes a harm from him. So there is no sin in the lie which benefits a Muslim or removes a harm from that Muslim. And to disclose an obscene act is also an obscene act. So every man should save his life, his property, and his honor by taking recourse to falsehood. And if harm is caused more than benefit in the case of speaking the truth, then you may avoid speaking the truth. So this is potentially the greatest scholar in Islam explaining how one lies as a Muslim.
Yet no Muslim will ever accept that lying is allowed in Islam, because they have all of these categories. So lying is one little thing, but then lies of omission and reinterpretation and doing all of these things is like, well, I have to do it. Actually, Allah told me I have to do it, but it's not a lie. And it's like, it's just pure insanity.
Yeah, I mean, you seem very affected by this. I mean, this must have been really painful, must have really had a deep impact on you. It must have cost you a lot to walk away from that. Must have been very painful.
yeah, especially just like I said, I didn't have the greatest start in life, and so when all this was starting to go wrong, I saw that like my whole life was actually a lot more abnormal and harmful than I originally thought. And so that started me on the path of like trying to recover from it. Like the relationships I had weren't like normal, they weren't healthy. It took a lot of learning, especially after I got out of this. It's been a really, really hard process. It's very isolating, especially
Okay.
when you come from a background where you're already isolated.
So if I may, so going into Islam, everything is great. I mean, they sell a great unicorn And basically, you just tell the Shahada you are in. You're going to have this great Ummah. It's going to be 2 billion brothers and sisters. Everything is going to be phenomenal. So I suppose that living Islam is also super easy. You just say, okay, I've had enough. Thank you, guys. And then you just walk away, right?
They never talked about anybody leaving.
Tell me
Maybe
more.
it's because they do, if somebody tries to live in traditional Islam, they will just have their heads removed from their shoulders. So they don't have a process for people to do that safely because they never had to deal with that in the past.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's different in the West. I mean, people can leave, but they will still. I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, when you leave in the West, you can still have people come after you. Like my ex-husband has been doing that for years. His family got me fired from jobs and stuff. Like, they will make your life miserable until you come back.
Wow. Yeah, apostasy is officially punished by death. It's called ridda, and whoever voluntarily leaves Islam is killed. And of course, if they can't carry that out, they will, well, accept whatever else they can. So they still. Yeah, I take it you've moved away, right? You've moved elsewhere.
Oh yeah.
Get away from them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
so these
for a while
people
there,
are
it was every few months I moved.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So
he has a lot of money, so it's something where you just have to keep moving.
I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a tough situation. I mean, terrible to be in.
Yeah. Well, I do have, like, legal processes started. It took a while to find somebody that would actually go against that kind of person, because he could ruin the lawyer's life too. He could send people after their family. You know, the masjid and everything does not care. Like, they will make anybody miserable that they feel like. It's kind of like Scientology in that way. They know they can't technically do what they want to, like they can in the Middle East, eliminate you that way. So they will eliminate other areas of your life so that you're homeless, broke, struggling, health failing. It's like a slow process rather than just a quick, immediate one.
Horrific. You just mentioned the imam and the mosque don't care. It should be noted that when you leave Islam, you've committed a crime. It's treason. In fact, technically, you've signed a contract. Like, you've signed a contract, but it falls under the category of a sale, a contract of sale. Now, within Western culture, when your soul is on the line and you sign a contract of sale, you're selling your soul to the devil. I mean, this is just the context in which we understand this. But in Islam, when you become a Muslim, effectively, you fulfilled a business contract of sale, which for our culture, it's the equivalent to selling your soul to the devil, right? But of course, because you've now broken a financial contract or something like that, or a contract of sale, you can be punished, and the Muslims are then empowered as the regents of Allah to do so. But notice here, that which concerning the Prophet, that which comes concerning the Prophet and his companions of killing due to the likes of these reasons to be according to a perceived benefit in doing so. And this is called the political killing. It is for the Imam to give a discretionary punishment with killing in these matters. Now, this is a ruling, this is the rulings in terms of insulting Islam, insulting Muhammad. And leaving the family, of course, is an insult to Islam. It's an embarrassment to the family. It's an honor-based culture. But the Imam is empowered in Islam to basically order a hit, as it states right here. I mean, so this is now maybe some good news. I'll actually maybe throw something else out there. I want to show you this. I found this today on X, which is fantastic. This is Beau French, and he is Beau French is candidate for Texas Railroad Commissioner. He's an entrepreneur, CEO, investor, and he spoke at CPAC a couple of days ago, right? And he gave a fantastic short speech here. We call it Sharia, but the problem is Islam. He was on the stage and he stated bluntly at CPAC, Islam is the problem. Muslims are the problem. He didn't sugarcoat it. He called it straight up. And he says, I speak to people. I speak to roomfuls of audio. I speak to full rooms filled with people. I speak to large audiences. And I ask them, how do you feel about the Islamization of Texas? And he says, every single hand in the room will go up. There's no one who's not concerned about it. And he's starting to make a noise. The man is a fantastic speaker. He also then gave this speech. The only way we are going to stop the Islamification of Texas and America is not just by banning Sharia law, not just by banning the call to prayer, not just by banning halal slaughter, which are all things I've called for, but we have to send them all home. So the same cry that is starting in the UK and it's starting in other countries, the sentiment is changing. And I think at some point it's going to flip. It's going to reach the critical mass. And sure, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy process, but people, the voices, like we are talking, for instance, 5 years ago when I started, or more, 2018, 19, when I started talking about the Sharia, people had no idea what it was. People were looking at me strangely. Now, everyone is using the word. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone realizes it's a component and a critical, integral component of Islam, right? I mentioned how I was involved with a group that was lobbying the Texas government, right? Especially with what was his name? I keep forgetting the guy's name, but the congressman for Texas, to eventually ban the Muslim Brotherhood and to recognize Sharia for what it is, and it worked. And so now we're seeing it's taken years, but the message is filtering through, and I think your voice and all of us who are speaking about this, it's starting to filter through. It's definitely, you don't have to reach 100% of people. You just need to reach enough people, and I think we're at that cusp now. We're starting to get influence, and things are changing. Also, I mean, the queen of Somali fraudsters, she's been helping a lot. You know, we all know Ilhan Omar, and now Vice President J.D. Vance has stated yesterday that the government now has evidence and proof that she committed immigration fraud. This can incur denaturalization. It's a normal legal process. You lie in immigration forms, you get denaturalized, you get sent back. And they said now they've opened their case. So let's hope something happens. But once that first domino falls, you've now set the precedent. So hopefully there's reason to take hope, and to be positive. Also, Attorney General Ken Paxton, Texas, the development of the potential Sharia city in Kaufman County has ended following my investigation. So they're starting to take action. Now, maybe not enough yet, but it's at the point now where the attorney generals are looking at this, and there's a coalition forming to ban Sharia in all of the US states. So this is growing. So I'd say these are reasons for positivity. I mean, because you told us that you were involved with Epic City and so on, and we can definitely get into that discussion. But what do you think of the positive news we see here? I mean, hopefully this has teeth, but what do you think of this news so far?
I'm trying to be positive about it. I love seeing all the documents released, saying, hey, we're going to stop this. And I like how with each release, they're tying it into the local communities, as well as that release was showing. I actually saw that this morning. I was very excited. It would be 20,000 outsiders being housed in Kaufman County, and the water supply, it could not handle something like a compound or something like that. So, they plan, I don't know if people understand how American, well, we don't have to go into all the extra details of allocating resources and resource management and stuff, but in Texas, they have their own power grid, and they also do a lot of their own water management. And so they are very strict because of how dry it can get with water at times. We're even asked not to run our faucets. So with voodoo and other wasteful methods, and just they're not going to contribute anything. They're just going to make their own compound, lock everybody out. I'm hopeful seeing stuff like this happen because it would have a negative impact on the existing communities in more ways than one. And it's good to bridge the gap so that people understand how it's going to impact people currently and people they know, not just say, oh, Muslim city bad. I think that's a very positive step in the right direction. And, Epic, geez, like they have so many things in the works, and they already have like compound-like areas where I was living. So they build in the worst areas. I swear to you, like they don't have. I'm trying not to be too rude about it, but like when you put something in a floodplain and you don't plan for that, and you don't have sewage planned, which they never have sewage planned. They never do. They don't care.
The same problem exists in Dubai. The same problem exists in Mecca.
Yes. It's them trying to bring Mecca here, or Medina, or the Middle East here, and they're like, oh, we can have basements, and we can have all this stuff. We can store our meat. We can have extra community areas. We can have women's prayer rooms in the basement. And I was just like, y'all don't understand Texas soil. Like you can't put basements in the soil. And they were just like, oh no, Allah will provide. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And I was just like, that the soil is, it's not basement friendly. You will collapse your foundation. It will flood. It will sink. You can't. They don't think these things through. They really don't. They just throw money at it and want it to be a bubble, a cocoon of Muslims so that they can start spreading their control. It's ridiculous.
But social media is acting against them because you see people putting up posts of the rape situation in the UK, France, Belgium, other countries, but especially the UK. You see these people coming in on their boats, and now they are armed migrants coming across the channel. You see the lack of response, and people are going, well, it's up to us to do something. You also see, for instance, you have now the revelation of the Somali fraud. And now you're seeing how these Muslims are tied into all sorts of fraud and scams. And people are going, but this is not fair. So there's a moral righteousness and indignation that's building, and a very rightly so. And this is starting to change sentiment. Now, the political will may not be there, but also you find that there's a political shift on the right. People are starting to vote people who are very much on the right side of the spectrum. And you start to see people starting to make, deportation, remigration is now becoming a common talking point worldwide. This is not now an isolated, extreme, far-right, crazy person issue. So this is now something so things are changing. I mean, especially now when you saw the Somali daycare fraud issue. I mean, that's to the tune of billions, probably. It's even worse than we realized because that was just one state. Right, when he also spoke of Minneapolis, the fraudsters there with the health situation, right? So you're looking at multiple billions in fraud, and people are going, hold on, but they're stealing from my children, they're stealing from my retirement, they're stealing from my children's educational fund, they're stealing from our taxes, they're stealing from my neighborhood. My roads aren't getting done, the bridges aren't getting fixed, the electricity grid isn't being repaired. Because these people are stealing money and sending it to Al-Shabaab in Somalia, sending it to the Houthis in Yemen. Mm-hmm. This is a problem. So I think it's a trickle, but the trickle is, there's a point at which that little trickle turns into a flood very suddenly. I mean, those are my thoughts. Anything from you on that?
I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Everything they're doing, it's all piling up, and I think the left is still full. I have friends on the left, so I don't like saying this often, but they are useful idiots at the moment. And unfortunately, so was the right in America. They play both sides.
Hmm.
And
George Bush was a religion of peace.
yeah,
That was the worst thing that happened in the last 25 years. Islam was a religion of
yeah,
peace. George Bush. That was horrific.
yeah. And Texas in particular is a very good example of the manipulation process because Texas has its own power grid for a reason. They want to be able to be independent from the rest of the country. They want to have control over their own resources. They don't want to rely on anybody else. That comes at a cost. I was in the freeze that happened. The power grid for most of the state went out, and we were freezing. Lots of people died and everything. And but they will team up with Christian conservatives, especially, and be like, "Oh yeah, no." Uh, no story time with people dressed in drag. Let's not put rainbow flags in schools. Let's keep certain like ideas out of schools. If if a group of Christians is creationist, they'll play on that. But now Christians are starting to see, wait a minute, if we keep partnering with you, you are just going to erase us. Like, you don't believe in the same Jesus. You believe in this fan fiction Jesus that's just a guy who did stuff and might come back later, even though they have no need for a Messiah in Islam, but that's a completely different topic. Like, they use all these deceptive like tactics to say we love Jesus, we think all religions should be able to coexist, we won't force anything on you, leaving out like abrogation and stuff. So it's like Christians are waking up and they're starting to see, wait, you don't believe in the same Jesus I do. You think my Bible's corrupted, even though we have manuscripts going back 2,000 plus years.
To 300 BC, 250
Yeah.
BC. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, and the Muslims are like, no, that's corrupted, even though their opinions are different from classical scholars on this topic of preservation and stuff. So it's just interesting seeing the flip-flopping and the Christians catching on. I think it's going to take a massive problem for the other side of the aisle to actually want to stop this, because they think all cultures and religions are equal.
Yes, retardation. I've seen that. I have a question. What is leading to these Christians starting to see differently, to question Islam and to see the problems? What is driving that change? And also, secondly, how is that impacting the Muslims? Because they must realize, they must see that there's a sea change coming. The tide is starting to turn and not in their favor.
Well, one of the first things is Dearborn, Michigan, Plano, Texas. Anywhere where there's a massive amount of Muslims, especially not from the West, they bring a lot of cultural baggage and religious baggage that completely destroys certain areas and makes it unsafe. They regulate everybody's behavior based on their beliefs. And like in Dearborn, for example, they can play the call to prayer at 5 a.m. and then all throughout the day. You cannot ring church bells in certain areas in Dearborn because that's not allowed in Islam. And then they say it breaks the noise ordinance or some, like, I don't know. It was something weird. One of my friends lives over there and she was like, yeah, we can't sing gospel outside. We can't do protests like with Christian crosses or anything like that. Certain stores have to sell halal. Different groups that can't eat halal are like targeted as like they're targeted really harshly in those areas. Mm-hmm. So it brings the quality of everything down. So that's like one of the first things I notice. And then Christians who are not just going with apologetics, but actually going with factual information and showing the world like the actual impacts of what's happening when that ideology one discusses Christianity and completely lies about it. And a lot of Christians don't have a good foundation in their faith, so that's causing problems with people like wanting to leave Christianity or getting sucked into that like vortex of Islam, or becoming atheist or whatever else, and it's disrupting communities. They can lie, so you know, they can pretty much make up anything. And so Christians that are approaching this, just reading the sources that are translated and translating, like honestly translating them, not putting a Christian spin on it.
Mhm.
That's helping people see the history of why things in the Middle East happened. And like they're trying to bring that over here. It's not just Sharia is praying, smiling at people. I got fed that same crap too. Okay. I got fed smiling is sunnah. It's, you know, you have to do it. It's good. It's like, you have to pray. You have to fast. You have to eat halal. They didn't tell me everything else that was going on there. And they're starting to see what Sharia actually is. And the fact that Islam is not a religion per se, it is a political cult wrapped in a unquestionable theology. It's tribal. It's Arab tribalism packaged as divinely ordained. And that's not going to be compatible with Christianity at all.
Right. So you said that people who were surrounded by Muslims or close to Muslim enclaves, they see this and they realize, hold on, this is not doing what it said on the tin, right? And they realize, yeah, I'm going to believe my lying eyes for once, because this is not what I expected. This is not how it's supposed to be. This is clearly violating my rights here as an American. So that's one positive. At least in America, you're more likely to be heard than you are in the UK right now, because, I mean, if you object to Muslims raping young girls, that's Islamophobic, and you can go to jail for that. I mean, in Germany, we've just had more than one case now. This week, there were 2 cases because one case dropped, and then, of course, people went to check if there were others, and they discovered more such cases. But at various social centers, asylum/refugee centers, they discovered that the administrators, the people in charge of these centers, failed to report sexual assaults on girls by Muslim boys because they said, well, you know, they didn't want to bring negative attention on the Muslims because they've got such bad press already. And now, of course, people are saying, look, we need to bring criminal charges against these administrators for covering up these months and months and years of multiple sexual assaults. And I'm sure that's just not an isolated incident. I'm sure it's pretty rife. So besides personal experience, I mean, how is internet apologetics, like what I do on this channel and so on, because you heard from us, you heard about me and JC from other people. So how is internet apologetics, and I mean, how do you find what we are doing, you know, impacting the other people? What's the ripple effect, if any, that you've detected?
I think because you guys really focus on deconstructing the history and the origins, that helps people find it a little bit more palatable than someone shoving a Bible in their face. So, you know, that is definitely a positive influence. It's just going to take a lot of time and re-education and people not being afraid and not backing down. And you have to be able to be somewhat aggressive at times. A lot of the, I had a lot of Muslims come on my channel, and you know, I'm pretty good at getting them to like get off script and just have a conversation, and that's pretty hard to do. But it's because I will put my foot down at times. I'll be very accommodating and listen, and because I actually do want to hear what they say. Like, I'm not trying to listen to respond and shut them down. I want to know everything that you're talking about. I want to know what you're planning. I want to know what your thought process is. Tell me everything so we can have a discussion. But I think, you know, going from that kind of approach that you all are doing with analyzing everything from history, comparing it to, you know, showing the pagan elements, even if you have a Christian spin on it, like what you all do is not fire, brimstone, insulting people and, you know, chasing them away from listening. So I think stuff like this is definitely very important. I've seen a lot of other groups, even some atheists, they're not particularly online. I've seen some local groups, but they start reading the hadith and they start reading the Quran out loud and they read the traditional commentaries and they're like, hey, this is what they actually believe and this is what they've been doing. Like they can't modernize. That's against their belief. They have to take us back to the 7th century tribal Arab culture because that's what Muhammad did. So they can't progress. They can't cooperate unless they're weak. So either kick them out or make it impossible for them to gain any kind of traction. I hate saying that.
Cut the
I'm not
funding.
used to
Stop the welfare. Just literally cut off the funding. The remittances, cut off the remittances, or heavily tax the remittances to discourage those. But cut the funding, cut the welfare, cut the benefits. Most of them will just suddenly have to self-deport because the money is enabling this, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously that. There's plenty of issues. There's also obviously lots of, shall we say, leftist administrators, judges, and so on in places of authority that are just permitting this, enabling this, failing to take a stand on this. But do you find that what we're doing is having an effect, that the internet is starting to positively impact people's knowledge, consciousness, awareness, understanding, going beyond the standard narrative, beyond the Dawa scripts that we are filtering through? I mean, someone else told you about me, someone else told you about JC, because they were learning from us. I mean, someone I didn't even know about. But so do you feel that this knowledge is starting to filter out and people are starting to educate themselves and it's starting to have an effect, that it's, shall we say, inoculating people against the false Dawa script? And is it starting to impact Muslims? Are they starting to have to go on the back foot to try to spin their story? Because people aren't taking the story, but no, Aisha was a woman. I mean, I don't think anyone believes that anymore. You know, I think that horse has now fled the barn. You know, that ship has left the station. You know.
Yeah, I do see some people trying to hold on to stuff like that, but it's so easy to completely debunk what they're saying. I do see a change. I see a lot more people reading, and especially when resources are compiled into easily accessible, like pre-packaged units for them to watch or download or look at online. I think a lot of people just don't have time to dig through it like we do.
Mm-hmm.
So when they have easier accessibility that you provide, especially, and good discussion about it, that's easy to comprehend and it just integrate into what they already know about, like morality and like how healthy countries run and different belief systems. Like I think that it's definitely helping a lot. I see even the Muslims that email me to try to correct my behavior at times. They can't, like, I'll give you an example of one of the most recent ones. He keeps trying to convince me that Aisha's marriage to Muhammad was healthy for her and positive to follow through all time, regardless of what happened to me.
I've asked Muslims, okay, do you condemn Jeffrey Epstein for sleeping with young teenagers? And they'll say, of course, it was disgusting, it's horrific, it's pedophilic.
Didn't marry them.
So it's disgustingly pedophilic to sleep with a 13 or 14-year-old, but it's perfectly fine to have sex with a 9-year-old. You know, it's
time and place, Lloyd. It's a time and place.
But then, unfortunately, this doesn't, because he's the perfect man and the perfect Muslim. He's the perfect example for all Muslims and for all time. So all Muslims should follow his example and have sex with 9-year-olds. But it's disgusting to have sex with a 14-year-old. I'm like, sorry, man, the contradiction here is rather blatant. And are you saying that Muhammad came out of a society of pedophiles? We'd like you to stay in your little barren desert location if that is the case.
Yeah, they.
I think,
go ahead.
JC?
sorry, it's like you guys said, it's about education. Islam could have lasted another 20,000 years if they stayed over there. But some brainiac had the brilliant idea to say, hey, let's start going to the West, and people are getting educated. What Lloyd mentioned that happened in the UK, well, that was going on for decades. But before, if somebody noticed something like that, they thought, well, this is a local gang. That's it. Nobody even knew what the word hadith actually meant, but now it's different. Now people are starting, well, not they are starting, now they are joining all of those dots. The same thing with George W. Bush when he said Islam is the religion of peace. Lloyd, imagine that being said now. There would be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of comments of people quoting hadiths, quoting Sharia. People didn't know that those things were around 20 years ago. So, what Joshua said in that comment, he's absolutely right. It's about educating the non Muslims. Those are the people that will make politicians open their eyes and say, hey, maybe I need to investigate this. Politicians, they don't just make decisions because they feel like it. They have to read the mood of the population. As the population learns what Islam is, then things happen. And just like it is very important, like these conversations, is so I assume, Arlette, that when you got into Islam, you didn't know anything about it, nothing about Sharia. But now there will be plenty of women who are considering going into relationships, going into Islam, and now they have learned about it because now the public is more educated and they will realize, no, they're selling me a unicorn. This was not around 20 years ago. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and excuse me, my throat is like acting up today. It's interesting to see that a lot of women are having to reanalyze, I guess, their place in current society. Men and women are both, struggling at the moment to like find their place. And Islam gives you like this prepackaged, like unmovable, unshakable, like guarantee of different jobs and things you have to do, and the worth you provide. And so, showing them all this information, it's just massively important, and educating them why, like, we see these things as harmful. I mean, if you tell someone hijab is oppressive because women in Iran get beaten for showing hair, or they're forced to wear it, that's not going to compute really, because they're like, well, that's just not real Islam. Those Islamic countries aren't actually practicing proper Sharia. Like, I hear that still all the time. They're not actually practicing Sharia. So, like, they have this warped idea. And, like, if you show them how these things are harmful, not just in a regime sense of like being forced by law to wear it, you can show them like health issues that can come from covering too much all the time, like vitamin D issues, traction alopecia, which is like when you tighten your hair under a hijab constantly, you'll start having hair loss and like scalp damage. The niqab and everything, like, that can cause harm to babies because they can't get enough nutrition from the sun. And Muslim women aren't like, they're not really encouraged to socialize and to get out and exercise and do stuff like that. So they are very like, I'm sorry to say, but like, they're not like the healthiest women to be having babies. And so all these things, like, when you get personal and you show them how it could actually harm them in multiple ways, that starts to, I think, chip at it when you combine everything together. Like, put a little personal touch, put some science in there, put some culture in there, and then they'll get it, like, oh, okay, so this actually probably isn't the healthiest thing to do to myself all the time, or this isn't a good way to live, or there's so much like lack of information out there with even just like socializing kids. Like, boys and girls interacting is healthy. Playing and being active in sports, girls, like Muslim girls, get taken out of all sports in most countries. They can't participate because either if they're in a girls' area, boys might peek in, so that'll cause fitna, and so you can't even let them have a space. Stay at home, cover the blinds,
Yeah.
can't go out and do stuff, can't go for walks, can't be productive, can't go learn. Like it's just so harmful. And that's like a series I wanted to make, is showing each of these different kinds of issues that come up all the time that I don't see a lot of people talking about.
Yeah, if I can mention something, Quran OnlyFans says the Taliban banning women from working is so stupid. Not only is it wrong, but economically, you're just restricting on workforce, your development, and your GDP. Now, that is a really smart statement. What I would love for you to do is go to South Africa and go and explain to the ANC how, if they just understood economics a little bit better, and they just understood social development just that fraction better, just by providing with the correct facts, which obviously they just don't know, but if you just give them the facts, they will change their minds, they will change their governance, they will suddenly develop the country into utopia. And I've also got a fairy tale about a unicorn you might just love, and you might want to go to the store and buy one too. So unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't work like that. It's not about just telling them the facts, because they have a completely different moral system. They have a completely different set of values. Your values are evil. Let me explain. You see, Westerners are evil. Americans are evil. Christians are evil. Jews are evil. They are correct. Your values must be destroyed. Your world must be destroyed. You are wrong by default, you see? So, for instance, the whole deception thing, this is not something that is new. Marx used it, and I would say that he borrowed plenty from Islam and from Gnosticism. They're all Gnostic. At the end of the day, these are all Gnostic cults in some shape, form, or other. People speak about Mandela as if he was a wonderful saint. Few people realize Mandela, after the blacks won the election, they were going around on stages singing, "We are going to kill the white man. We are going to kill the farmers. We are going to take their land. We are going to let the blood flow." Now, it's not pleasant for Westerners to think in these terms, but if someone had just gone to Mandela and said, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't be supporting calls for the murder of all the white people in South Africa and the farmers and the blood flowing so that the blacks can take back land that was never theirs, that they can never prove they actually ever owned, that they never worked on, never developed, and have no ownership or stake in," maybe someone should have just told him that. But you see, the facts, the history, they don't matter. It's not about that. At some point, you have to realize this is about a show of force. You're either going to put your foot down and you're either going to say, "This is the line, don't cross it." You said something earlier about being very aggressive with the Muslims. I'm from Africa. Now, I come from mixed families, so I've got family with blue eyes and blonde hair, okay? And I've got families that's darker than me, so that's just the way it is back home, right? So, unfortunately, with the third world mentality, it is rarely that you'll just get cooperation because they see weakness, they see gentleness as weakness. They see it as an opportunity you can take advantage of. So, when I was working in the Middle East and even working in Africa, sometimes when you're working with a third world mind, you gain cooperation by threatening them, by being mean, by being harsh, by being aggressive, potentially violent, threatening violence. And then suddenly it's like, "Yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir." And then suddenly they'll cooperate because that is what they respect. So you need to understand your values are dysfunctional in their world. You need to understand that this is not the way that you communicate with them. They will take advantage. They will stab you in the back. They will undermine. They will smile in your face, and they will rob you blind when you turn your back. I've spoken about this before, and I'm not trying to destroy community cohesion here, but I'm really trying to be honest with you. Those of you, I put up a post recently of a black guy saying that he wants to murder every white person in South Africa. Now that includes family of mine. I would fight to defend my family. And if I had to choose between the life of my family and, let's say, this person coming to harm, if that's the choice that was forced upon me, then I am going to do a great deal of harm to the people on the other side of the fence who look like me, because I will stand up for my family. So, because that is the right thing to do, that is legal and that is moral. I think that is family. But white people need to understand that blacks, by and large, Now, of course, someone's going to say, but not all black people, not all Muslims. Well, you know what? Those peaceful Muslims, those peaceful blacks, they're freaking irrelevant, useless. Because I can assure you, when the blacks were burning down the houses in my neighborhood and gutted, threw a firebomb into my neighbor's house, and then a few nights later threw a firebomb into my other neighbor's house next to me, you know where the peaceful blacks were? Fucking nowhere to be seen. Absolutely nowhere. Did they stop the violent mob? No, they didn't. They were complaining about how I'm not like that. Look at me. I walk on water. I'm not violent. That didn't stop the violence. It's just virtue signaling by saying, well, I'm good, but you know what? They'll benefit from the violence. They'll have the laws changed in their favor. They'll take your job. They'll get all those benefits that benefit them. And they'll go, but it wasn't me that did it. You see, it's simple. So look, please understand, there is a great deal of hatred, whether deserved or not, in not black, black towards white. I've been too many conversations with white colleagues. When they leave the room, the tone shifts like that. Suddenly, it's like snakes coming out, and suddenly the poison in the language about how they hate white people. Muslims speak the same way. I've been in taxis where I get into a taxi and there's a non-white immigrant in that taxi, and you'd be shocked at the conversation. You would be shocked at the conversation because they see I'm a black guy, I'm from Africa, and you'd be shocked about the things they say about the people and the women in the country they're in. This is not an exception. It's just those. No, it's freaking everybody. And okay, maybe it's not 100%. You know what? Maybe it's 85%. But that peaceful 15%, useless, irrelevant. They're doing zero to stop it because they know that if they say anything, they'll get hurt. Simple as that. So all those nice black people and all those nice Muslims are useless, irrelevant. Those people that are willing to use the violence and those who are willing to use subversion, they're a threat. So please, I know I say what I say here is controversial. I say contentious things, but please understand it. I come from this culture. I know this culture. I made my choices. Okay, I got, shall I say, to some degree ostracized because I walked away from it. I got myself educated, and there's a punishment for that. But please understand, I have no harm. I wish no harm upon these people, but they are a threat. They are a severe threat. You have no idea how many times I've been with my wife in South Africa, and it is not pleasant. I was not a soldier. I've never been surrounded by groups of men with guns in those situations where I've got backup and helicopters on call. But I've been alone in situations where I have been with my wife. I see things building, and then I've got to think to myself, and this is not pleasant, I've got to think, do I have to terminate the existence of these individuals in front of me in the next few minutes? Will I have to send someone to the expensive care ward or worse? This is the kind of threat you're going to be dealing with. This is what is happening in the UK and France. So please understand, you need to understand this is a severe threat. This comes from Muslims, comes from blacks. It comes from those third world minds, those tribal mindsets. And please take a stand. I'm sorry if I've just gone off there without trying to rant all that, but this is something that worries me. I've seen it. And violence might peak, but that hatred expresses itself in a million different ways, even in non-violent, or shall we say in pre-violent ways. Your thoughts on that?
I definitely agree with you. That's why I tried to vary my approach. I tried being super nice and Western, and if you're nice enough, then people will change. I had that attitude for a long time, and then it was a reality check that, like, if you don't put your foot down and identify what their values are, morality, that you can, I mean, maybe I can't do much of anything, but if you don't identify what they value and what they see as right, and you can't make a point based on that, you're not going to get anywhere with them. But unfortunately, like the majority of people in those countries, we probably can't, I don't want to say anything like definite, but like you can't change an entire country. You can't save every single person in the way you think they should be saved or changed or act, or it's just not going to happen. As hopeful as I used to be that everyone on the planet could get along and just be respectful and thrive and just want prosperity and happiness and joy and resources and blah, 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 all that good stuff. It's not reality. And reality is, we can get some of them to see things differently, but we are going to have to defend ourselves. Like that's just a guarantee. We have to defend ourselves.
You have to impose your values. You have to enforce them.
Unfortunately, you can't be nice.
If you move to Dubai, I lived in Dubai for 11 years of my life, right? There are mosques everywhere. Of course, it's a Middle Eastern Islamic country. There are churches in Dubai. Certainly, Muslims could put this church, yeah, sure, with high walls around them. Every now and again, you'll find the police officer will be stationed to check who comes in to those churches. They want to check your ID to make sure no Muslims go in, right? Because you'll be arrested if that is the case, because it's illegal. And of course, you can't sing very loudly. There's no church bells because they're not allowed. You can't sing very loudly. You can't have loudspeakers outside because, yeah, sure, they allow Christians as long as they keep their mouths shut. There's no external processions. There's nothing that you can't market as a church. You can't put any crosses outside. Yeah, so even the UAE is very tolerant, but understand they enforce their culture harshly, severely. And unless you do the same, these people are just going to take advantage. They're going to run rampant.
Yeah, and that's happening in like Dearborn, like I was mentioning earlier. That's the same thing. It's starting very slow, but you have hateful preachers in those mosques talking about overthrowing the government and like buying churches and making things so uncomfortable for Christians in the area that they have to leave. So I actually had to change my mind on this. Like 5 or so months ago, I think it was like the mayor was, there was a Christian in the, it was like a public meeting for the mayor and, like a town hall. That's what it's called, town hall. And the Christian was saying, like, I don't want a street named after someone that supports Hamas or something. And the mayor was like completely insulting this guy, and he's like, the day you move out is the day I'm going to throw a parade because you are not welcome here. The Christian was not welcome there because he didn't want like all this Islam everywhere, and he would preach outside the mosque. And it was funny because I at that point had a revert moment of, you shouldn't be harassing Muslims. And I kind of like defended him a little bit, and then I caught myself. I was like, wait a minute, wait. The Muslim would completely erase this guy if they had complete control.
Mm-hmm.
He has a right to be outside the mosque saying these things, but he's not like going and hurting people. He's not going in harassing people, but they feel harassed and they have to say, you can't even go on our sidewalk, because they have to like keep pushing you further away until you have no ground left and you have no resources and you have no people, and they will completely take over. And you can see that clearly in Dearborn. That most places don't even fly American flags there. You won't see American flags. You won't see non-Arabic like script on certain kinds of markets and stuff. Like it has to be halal. It has to be Middle Eastern to be acceptable. Like it's all being erased. It's
cultural replacement. Do you know that genocide is actually not the killing of people? Genocide is also defined as the termination of a culture, the erasure of a culture, of language, of traditions, of just the people's lifestyle. That's also genocide. That's ethnic cleansing. And this is what they do. This is what they are doing on a small scale. So actually the termination of people's existence is known as democide. That would be the more correct term. So this is actually cultural erasure. This is ethnic cleansing. They're pushing people out of those neighborhoods, and they're guilty of this. And we're just seeing it on a small scale, and it needs to be acknowledged. And one way is to use the law against them. They're using the law against you right now. JC, any thoughts from your end? You've been very quiet.
Yeah, I was trying to actually find a video. I have failed epically from a little while ago where Hatun Tash and Adam Seeker are actually speaking, and then this Muslim actually went there. Actually, Hatun Tash put him on for a bit, showing a gun and, basically being very clear as to what he wanted to do to Hatun. And he's like, well, it's the religion of peace, but somebody did not tell this guy. So, but with these things happening around the world, I read recently the memorandum that was declassified or found during the Holy Land trials, Holy Land Foundation trials. So I read it fully, and that plan was perfect for actually getting rid of the West. It was 100% perfect. If you actually read it, the plan was, really, really detailed. The one thing that they didn't account for was what nobody accounted for. That was the internet. If we didn't have the internet, everything that is happening now, anything to do with Islam, there would not be any pushback because people wouldn't know. Everything would be excused as, well, some people are doing bad things there. Well, that's just a gang. No, well, those are just some guys. But we wouldn't be able to see the bigger picture. Now we have the internet. We look at those things, we see what's happening in the ground, and we join the dots. It's like, yeah, they're doing exactly what they said they were going to do. And guess what? It ain't happening. So all of this could have stayed for thousands of years, but now they're in the West. The levels of apostasy in Islamic communities is ridiculous. And we know why. Look at these channels. Wherever we look at, we see tons of problems with the Quran, the preservation, the Hadiths, the Sharia, the Sirah. Wherever we look, there are problems. The people are becoming really educated so they can actually push back. In the past, we didn't know. So now it's just a matter of time, and there is this almost race. On the one hand, you have Islam trying to gain as much power and control wherever they can because Islam is collapsing. This generation is the last generation of Islam. On the other hand, people like us trying to speed it up as much as possible because lives are at stake. So easy as that. But Muslims, they already know, as in imams and stuff, they know that it has collapsed. And that's what they talk about when they are having private conversations. When they speak to the community, they will keep saying, fastest growing community, fastest growing religion, we're going to take over, we're going to impose Sharia. It's not happening. They know that they are on their last legs.
I completely agree with that. From personal standpoints, I get a lot of Muslims coming to me questioning. Some have left from things I've said. And then you just look at the economies of the Middle East and how unsustainable they are and how they're ruining all the resources because they banned education and science and geography and just environmental studies of any kind because it was Western. Anything Western was bad. It was following the non-believers. Knowing your environment and taking care of your people and maintaining resources and cooperating so you survive and thrive, that was bad. So they can't do a thing about it.
Yeah, and actually, I've mentioned the sort of things that we do, so talking about their sources. But then outside of the sources, there are people like, for example, Raymond Ibrahim. That guy has now gone on podcasts with just absolutely everyone. And he's telling people, hey, this golden age of Islam where Cordoba was amazing, that didn't happen. So let me tell you what really happened. And let me tell you why all of these fights were happening and why the Crusades. And we didn't learn those things at the school. Even I was told at the school, well, the Pope wanted some land and said, hey, Jesus told me, let's go and grab some land. That is the version that I got. And I grew up in a Catholic country. Okay. So now it's different. Now it's like, no, there was a bit of context that was not given. So from all areas, not only about the traditions and so on. We have people like Raymond Ibrahim talking about the history and showing people you have been told lies. So this is just unstoppable now, unless they manage to take over the world in the next 5 minutes and delete the internet. Yeah, they are not winning this one.
No,
I mean, they can't.
we're
Oh,
weak.
sorry.
It's not that we are weak and have been won over because we're weak. It's mostly because we haven't even done anything at all to stop them. We've done very little. So I think once everyone does take a stand, then of course they will find out that they're the ones who are quite weak. But not to say they won't start riots and start massive problems. I mean, you look at countries like France. I think there's going to be conflict, but there is also going to be civil war. People are openly now predicting civil war. For instance, in the UK, I doubt it's restricted to just the UK, but civil war is being predicted. And I think we'd rather head this off by just cutting their funding, removing their benefits, and just taking a hard stand on this. Let's go on, Arlette.
Yeah, I mean, trying to remember what I was about to say. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the best thing we can do is just keep pushing back and reducing the amount of harm they do. I honestly don't think Islam could ever actually conquer the world because they fight each other so often. So it's like they call each other non-believers even for how they pray differently with hand placements or arm, how they wash, which sunnah they follow. Like they all argue and they all fight all the freaking time. They can't agree with each other. So I think harm reduction is a good focus, and just trying to preserve a way of life that isn't a complete freaking disaster like that is. I think I just don't think it can completely ever take over. I just want as much harm reduction as humanly possible. That's what I'm trying to make my goal, and that's why I don't really I don't really limit who I talk to or who I discuss things with, because if I can just plant a seed in there or understand them better, that'll help me in other areas. So I just use all as a tool for harm reduction. So that's just where I stand on it.
Do you think we're being effective? Do you think that like podcasts and shows like ours are actually having an effect? And do you see in the Muslim community that they're starting to have to deal with this, that they're starting to deal with the assault from all sides? And I say that metaphorically, but the fact that the people now know better.
Yeah, I mean, I still watch the Dawa channels and the discussion panels and all that. Like, I still have access to all those things. Especially if I throw a niqab on, they can't really tell. So, it's interesting to see them backpedaling and trying to explain away the differences in the Qurans, trying to explain the Hadith and the preservation, and just try to rescue the authenticity, even though it's not a actual science. But it's that's a whole other thing I could rant about like for 5 hours. But yeah, everything's gonna fall apart. They can't even agree with one another. They're infighting. They're doxing each other. Like the Dawa guys are doxing each other. They're exposing sins everywhere. They're fighting. They blacklist every Christian apologist in debates now. Like, they won't talk to certain people if they know you're educated.
Yep.
They are just freaking out. And some of the more known ones have emailed me, and they tried to threaten me because I was reading Hadith and I was reading the Quran in different translations and comparing them. That's all I did. And they were like, "We are going to take you out. I hope your husband finds you." Because technically I'm still married in Islam, because they would not divorce me. So they were like, "We hope we can deliver you to him or take you for ourselves or eliminate you. Like, you better stop." And they are just backpedaling.
That is insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a gang. This operates like a mafia.
I always joke it reminds me of the Italian mafia. Like, pay us or we'll hurt you for whatever reason. It's like because of reasons we created, it's situations we created. We'll protect you from us. That's pretty much what it is.
That is, are they seeing our channels? Are they seeing the information? Because I see on social media when Muslims make some of these outrageous claims or use their old dawah tactics, they get swarmed, they get ratioed these days. Do you see concern in the Muslim community? Because I'm seeing everyone's going, look, oh my God, Islamophobia is on the rise, and obviously they're trying to clamp down through Islam now. In Islam, sorry, I meant to say in the UK, which is slowly turning into an Islamic country that's going to have nukes. They've now created the anti-Muslim hate law, which is really just an Islamophobia law, just renamed. But they're concerned. I mean, they're trying to clamp down, but I think public sentiment is going to, they can't jail everybody.
No, they can't. That's what I always say. Once people start realizing that, and that they could take control back, it's a game over for the people that are having whoever in their pockets paying them to do this or threatening them to do this, or because that's what I think it is. I think it's someone in their pockets. It's someone in their blackmail. I think, honestly, I'm pretty sure I gotta be a little careful with what I say about the UK. I don't know if I'll get anybody in trouble here, but I think their leader is a Muslim. Like, their royalty is a Muslim leading everything.
Oh, the Prince Charles. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
lots of I've seen the respect for the royals in the UK is at an all-time low. People are seeing them as useless.
Yeah, he's not defending anybody or anything. And even the Vatican, that's again another topic I could go into for hours. I am so disappointed with them saying it's the same God. Christians and Muslims worship the same God. They're just misunderstanding things. We need to accommodate them. We need prayer rooms in our Vatican. And I'm like, do you understand? You try to pray the way you pray in a mosque or in any area. Like, if you want, you can't even enter certain areas. Like, you can't go around the Kaaba. You can't go visit that holy site. That's literally Muslims only.
Yeah.
If you tried to enter as a Christian, they would completely annihilate you. Like, it's, oh my gosh. Like,
No, it's an apartheid sort of setup. Coming from having been born and lived in apartheid South Africa, when I listen to foreigners speak about apartheid, you're like, I wish you people would just drop it, because you have no idea what apartheid is. But they are literally preventing. I mean, they will go. There was a video recently last week of a Muslim immigrant that walked into, I think, a German church, and he urinated on the altar. And there was a French church that was an old cathedral, a historical cathedral, just burned down by the caretaker. So what happened is they had this migrant, this African Muslim migrant, possibly, who knows, I don't know, African migrant, who was basically homeless and poor, and the priests took him in and fed him and housed him, and they gave him a job. They said, look after the cathedral, do various things, and he burned it down, started a fire in the cathedral. And then after this happened, the priests forgave him, and the one priest said, look, let me give you a home, we'll care for you and feed you. So the guy moved into the priest's home, and he murdered the priest. And you're like, okay, maybe there's a lesson in that.
Yeah,
it's not a one-time thing.
It's education. Is what we have been as well talking about, that some of these actions of, okay, let's actually just be very, very friendly and accommodate these practices is done by people who have not done 1% of the research or have the 1% of the knowledge of any one of us here, and probably not even 1% of the knowledge of the people watching this channel, because they are very educated. So those people are like, oh yeah, well, and if you want a Buddhist room here, we do a Buddhist room for you. It's fine. It's like, no, you should have read the sources to see what the teachings are. So that It did not happen historically, but over the last pretty much 10 years, probably in the last 5, is when we are seeing these things and we are really connecting the dots. Before they were saying every time that a Muslim would do something like this, it's like, oh, well, he was troubled. And now, but what a coincidence that what he has done is in the sources. He's acting how a Muslim is supposed to, and so on. So I think as we educate more people, these things will snowball. I think we have already reached the snowball point. So, like we said, like Joshua said earlier, you just need to educate 350 million Americans. So, make sure that people watching you share this, send this to 350 million Americans, and this ends next week. Is that simple?
I wish it was that simple.
Mm-hmm. It's numbers.
Yeah. I mean, we just need to keep talking about this. We need to keep having these discussions. Rather this than Europe burns. Because what's happening in Europe what happens in the Middle East is now happening in Europe. History is repeating itself. And it's going to happen in the US if this doesn't stop. And rather we discuss this and people take steps early, even if we are a little bit late, but better than us having what happened in the Lebanon, because that was the only Christian country in the Middle East. It was set up as a safe haven for all the Christians in the Middle East who were persecuted and pushed out. They ended up in the Lebanon, and of course they gave the Palestinians a home, and it turned into a typical Palestinian, dump. Let's put it politely. So, Lebanon is the example. Okay, so Bernard Whipple, you are discussing something totally off topic. That conversation stops here and now. This is your only warning. I did text you about that. It stops. Okay, it's irrelevant to our discussion. So that discussion stops here and now. So Arlette, what is it that you discuss on your channel? What are the topics that you cover? What are the videos that you think have been of most relevance to you? What are the issues? Because we've been going a couple of hours, we can wind down slowly, but what are the things that you discuss, and what are the things you want people to pay attention to?
Yeah, so honestly, I'm kind of recalibrating like the direction I'm taking the channel now that I'm back. I was in the hospital for a while, so I couldn't like do anything, and I took everything down just so I wouldn't like get targeted for anything I said and not be able to like defend myself or anything. So most of my stuff is I try to have live discussions with people, answer questions about leaving Islam, tell them about like why I'm Christian now, and kind of help like the ex-Muslims. There's a lot of like animosity in the ex-Muslim community between different kinds of ex-Muslims, like the atheist versus Christian especially. And so I'm trying to like calm that down and be a place where Muslims and everybody can come talk about different topics and just listen. I don't allow people to talk over each other or disrespect each other as much as I can, because I need us to hear each other. We need to know what's going on with one another. And people open up, and we learn so many. The emails I've gotten just of some like hardcore Salafi Muslims, I start like emailing back and forth. They were starting to understand my points, because it was like you said earlier, you got to target what they value, what their morals are. And with that particular one, I was like, it's like, your children are going to be having a very pathetic, worthless future. You're being a bad parent. You're not, I was targeting everything about like how they want to reproduce, have tons of kids, all this stuff. And I was just like, this is all the harm you're doing to your kids by acting the way that you do. And when he started hearing that, he couldn't come back with anything. It's just like, but God said so. And I was like, yeah, but look at what's happening to your kids. They're miserable. They're nutrient deficient. They're having no opportunities. You're being a bad dad by not being there for them with 4 other women. Like, and it clicked. Like, it took a couple months, but it clicked. So I try to open up opportunities for that. I like having fun discussions about things like the Islamic dilemma, which is like, for anybody that doesn't know, it's like the Quran affirms the Torah and the Bible, the Christian like gospel, even though they say it doesn't. It's basically the Quran is like the protector of that previous information and trying to get everybody back on track. So basically, either way, Islam kind of disproves itself by the Quran alone, because it can't be true if it's getting all this information, like different stories of the Bible, facts about Jesus and the Trinity, the Christian beliefs, incorrect. It can't be right, because that's what we have in our manuscripts for over 2,000 years. That's what we've always believed. That's what our councils believed. They don't even understand the Torah or the Talmud, which is like a collection of Jewish commentaries. They don't understand any of this stuff. And so I like to open up the discussion to point out flaws in both arguments, the Christian side and the Muslim side. I like to do academic. I like to have fun with it, joke about things, have like a casual living room, like, come on, let's talk about things. It seems to work out pretty well. And then just like some personal stuff, I'm dabbling in like sharing antique books that are Christian based. I have one that's like 120 years old now. I'd like to collect like vintage things like that and share it, but it's like a personalized education and debate. It's like healthy, casual debate. And I think going forward, I definitely want to use some of the information I found here on your channel and other channels and like condense it into like bite-sized pieces for people and have them talk about it, have them discuss it and see what we think about it. Because that way we can start changing some more minds and make it more entertaining so that people can like get into it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of channels, they just want drama. Like the ones that talk about the Islamic dilemma or other like Christian Islamic, I guess, interactions. It's all drama based. I don't tolerate that.
Right. So you actually invite them onto the channel for dial-ins or things like that? Do you do that as well?
Yeah, I do call-ins, and then sometimes I'll just read the chat and like talk about it, and they'll just keep sending messages, and then we usually email afterwards. I am trying to eventually have people on just like a conversation like this planned, but I think it's going to take a lot of work on my end.
What you're doing is
but-
that you're causing doubt. It's fitna. Which is
Yeah,
turning people
yeah.
away from Islam. So it's actually you're guilty of fitna. But
I
causing
am.
doubt causes them to question, which leads them away from Islam. So that's the right tactic. I've participated on other channels in some of these talks, but it's such a waste of time because they're not trying to find the truth. They're trying to win.
Yes.
They're trying to find any way they can to win the argument and not acknowledge, and they'll deny their own sources. They'll claim that their own sources suddenly, are irrelevant. And it's just a waste of, I just find it a waste of time. I've invited literally hundreds, multiple hundreds of Muslims on my channel to discuss the Sharia, to read the Sharia publicly and discuss it. Yeah, well, you don't see lots of them coming on because they don't want to. I've made public posts on X, on YouTube, on et cetera, just they won't. It's too humiliating, it's too embarrassing, and they don't want to, as you say, speak to people who know what they're talking about. So, in fact, I have friends at Speaker's Corner in the UK who've said that when people start using my material, Muslims are told, don't engage with the people that use Lloyd's information. If they mention my name, walk away. So, yeah, you do see that. So that's a serious issue. But yeah, I think it means that they're on the back foot. We just got to keep pushing. We just got to keep pushing forward and keep doing this. What you're doing, you have a lot of knowledge. You come from a perspective of having been there and you understand the threat. So I think that's a really good place to come from. It's unfortunate that it's such a terrible experience, but it also gives you a place where you understand the depth of the problem. You can really give perspective to it. So I think, what you do is valuable. What you do is you add something that the rest of us lack.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that I'm hearing everybody else getting like banned from the Muslim channels, but they're telling me to come on and talk to their panels and stuff. Like they want me to come because they see me as someone that can listen and I think they can convert me back,
Yeah.
but it's like, I just listen and I try to have good dialogue and I try to ask really good questions because I am actually listening to hear them and not just respond. So I think that's incredibly valuable. And they know I'm not trying to hurt them. They know they can just, I guess, sense like I'm not trying to destroy everything. Part of my story is I was constantly for a while trying to fix the Islamic community while I was in it. I was trying to do, okay, if women are feeling so depressed and not getting enough vitamin D and stuff, why can't we build something for the women to go to that is safe and not like out in the open, that has high walls with sun, or like why can't we have like better health facilities for people? Why can't I was trying to fix every problem I saw, and I struggled. Like even after leaving, I was like thinking of ideas to try to fix it because I was like so brainwashed into thinking that was the right way to go, to stay in Islam anyway, even though I was miserable. And that's a trauma response. Like you get attached to the abuser, which is in this case the whole system. You start feeling bad for it. You start.
Sorry, you disappeared there for a second. You just suddenly
That's
dropped.
okay. Okay, am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure where it cut off, but like just sympathizing with the system and trying to fix it rather than understanding what it actually is. Um, I think that happened to me quite a bit. So I understand people having trouble leaving because they're so attached to the idea of what they were sold.
Right.
That's all you had.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've just seen the dysfunction across the world. I've traveled extensively across the Middle East. I've been to all the Gulf countries, other countries, Iraq, etc., etc. I've traveled to a lot of hotspots, and you just see the whole, and also my social interactions with people in the UAE and other places. You just see the dysfunction, the fear, I mean, it's just dysfunctional, and you're like, I don't want that here. I don't want that near me. I left Africa to get away from that stuff. I don't want it following me and turning this nice place I live in into another African hellscape or another Middle Eastern hellscape. The whole idea of kumbaya, hug a tree, and everyone is wonderful. No, good grief. People need to realize Islam is evil. Some religions are evil, and this is definitely one of them. So we need to understand it has different values, antithetical values. It goes against your values. So yeah, we can probably call it a day here.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean London is 30% white, exactly. And this is a problem.
Just before we go, let me just add that I read a book, for example, from a Muslim reformer from the US, saying, well, we should actually read the Quran through the lenses of the 21st century and stuff. And it was very annoying to read because you know that doesn't happen. Even someone I've mentioned before, Raymond Ibrahim, said Islam needs maybe not a reformation, but enlightenment. They need people to realize that there are problems. And it's like, but those things go against Islam. Islam does not allow doubt, and what has been established for 1400 years, you cannot change it. Every Muslim has been told they have to follow the example of Muhammad until the day of judgment. And the writings that they have accepted for all that time, they are there. You cannot now say, okay, hang on a minute. So 9-year-olds now are going to be haram because we are in the 21st century. It doesn't work in Islam. You cannot reform it because they have established into it that you cannot doubt it, you cannot challenge it. It has to be exactly as Muhammad did. So as much as people now in the West, many Muslims, Imam Tawhidi sounds in that manner, like, no, everything was supposed to be peaceful. It's just some people corrupted things. It's like, yes, but that would have been 5 minutes after Muhammad. So it's been 1400 years. You don't get to rewrite history and now start saying, let's start removing 99% of the hadiths and keep the other 1%, and that's Islam. You simply cannot do it. Islam has it's a system that cannot be changed. So any attempt at a reform cannot be done. Islam it has protected itself against change. Now that they are in the West, there is only one outcome, and we can see it through the waves that people are leaving Islam in numbers that were unthinkable just a few decades ago. So we know where this is heading. We just keep the conversation going. And Arlette, well done for engaging in peaceful conversations with Muslims and ex-Muslims. Lots of people, like you said, they go for the drama. So better you than me. I'm not patient. So, you keep going.
Yeah, but Islam can't be reformed. It needs to be destroyed. And it needs to be, shall we say, forbidden in the West, because the fact that it is antithetical to Western values, norms, laws, morality, and it needs to be contained in its own areas. They want to keep the Middle East or Afghanistan that way, that's great. But I would put these people on a red list where you wouldn't allow immigration from these countries. You would literally start to deport all of these people that have no legal right to be there. And if they commit crimes, and I would monitor these groups, because that's what they do in the Middle East. They literally monitor these people for subversive activity. And there's no reason why you can't do so. I mean, 90% of the people on the MI5 watch list in the UK are Muslims. 95% of the terror attacks in the UK are from Muslims. And then they'll tell you, yeah, far-right white men are a problem. Like, hold on, you literally have the vast majority of terror threats are Muslims. The attacks are by Muslims. And then you're going to go, yeah, but it's like, we've got to worry about nice white teenagers. It's like, are you seriously insane? I mean, this needs to stop. And I think just by speaking out, sentiment is changing. We're changing the public, shall we say, the temperature is changing simply because we are putting pressure on people just by talking about it. And you can't deny the truth for too much longer. So that's just about how it is. I think we have reason to be positive. It's not that they are strong and we are weak. It's that we haven't done anything. But once we start doing things, I think we can. And I do see change coming. And unfortunately, we want to avoid civil war, but this will happen if we don't take some kind of stand. So guys, we can maybe call it here. It's been 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is surprising. It's taken a while, but we've got people have black fatigue and Islam fatigue. People have woke fatigue. People have LGBT fatigue, black fatigue, and Islam fatigue. Yeah, we've had enough. I've had enough. I come from Africa. I am primitive enough to still believe there's only two sexes, male and female, and that if you have a winky, you're a male. If you don't have a winky, you're a female. I'm that primitive, believe it or not. Arlette, I'll leave it up to you. Final word, and then JC, and then we'll call it a night.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed the discussion today. I think that we touched a nice variety of topics, and it was nice to sprinkle my story in here and there. Going straight through it in one go can be incredibly difficult, but I think that we brought up a lot of great points, and even though we might have somewhat of a different approach on certain things and different ideas, I think it's really nice that we can get here together and just discuss things and find a way forward and just keep showing people what's going on behind the scenes. I definitely have a ton more stuff I could talk about. There's so much.
We'll do this again. Don't worry, we'll do it
Yes.
again. We'll definitely do this again. It's not a problem.
This was great. I love your audience, and I had fun talking to both of you. It's been such a good thing.
Someone asked how you deal with the deportations. Just want to add a point. At the height of colonialism in India, people who were, the whites colonized everything. Those British colonized every. You know what? At the height, in the 1930s, at the very height of the colonial empire of the UK, in India, for instance, in that part is now India, Pakistan, at maximum, there was about 170,000 white people in India. Now, someone just said, how are you going to, yes, deport 1.6 million Pakistanis, and what will you do without the 16,000 doctors? You know what? Tell you what, since all those Indians and Pakistanis, throw out all of them except for 170,000, because fair is fair, right? Fair is fair, 170,000. Then I think that's great. And those 16,000 Pakistani doctors, you know what? Most of them have fake certificates. They're fake doctors. They bought those certificates at the airport before they left. They're unqualified. They barely speak English. There's some serious problems with them. So yeah, and I think you'll find that a lot of white UK, shall we say, British, English natives were denied the opportunity to have those jobs. And I think they'll happily take them, and they'll do a far better quality job. Short-term pain for long-term gain. I think it's really simple. And I think it's really simple. So yeah. So yeah, that's my final, our new gender forms. Yeah, winky or no winky. Well, yeah. Yeah, the same level as our Cuban doctors, exactly. The Cuban doctors. Well, then someone where did that comment go? Yeah, the same level as Cuban doctors, exactly. So yeah, so JC, final word, and then an update from Arlette, and we call it a night.
Yeah, well, Arlette, it's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation. And as painful as the whole experience would have been for you, at least you are really trying to share all of your knowledge with people and help people, as opposed to just keeping all of that knowledge for yourself, and contribute to the movement to make people not join Islam or to know what to do when they come out. So well done, keep up the good work, and I hope that we have the opportunity to talk about more Islamic related topics.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. So definitely we'll invite you back on a scale from 1 to 10. I know everyone's going, we're a great team except for me. So, so I guess you and JC did a great job, but thanks for joining the channel. Really great to have you on, and we will do this again. So everyone, I hope this was enlightening. Hopefully it was perhaps controversial, perhaps a little difficult, and thank you for discussing some difficult topics. But guys, I think it's necessary we have these conversations. And remember, if you're a winky, that means you're a man. Okay? Don't let anyone tell you different.